The mystery surrounding Sean Astin's real parents hung over his otherwise lauded life and career for a long time. There were still unresolved concerns over his biological father, even though he had a grounded personality and was successful in Hollywood. The truth has now been revealed thanks to contemporary science. Unveiling the mystery of a personal quest for self-discovery, a DNA test has verified the hitherto unknown. Sean Astin starts a new chapter as he faces the results, one that is based on indisputable biological reality rather than celebrity or gossip. You may be surprised to learn who his biological father is, and the emotional fallout from that revelation is just now starting to surface. Patty Duke. Patty Duke was an extraordinary performer with many talents, whose work will live forever in theater, cinema, and television. Her performance as Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker, for which she won an Academy Award, catapulted her to stardom at an early age. She displayed an incredible level of emotional maturity and depth in her performance. Her portrayal of two very different cousins on The Patty Duke Show, who were identical, showed her comic timing and flexibility, and she went on to become a household celebrity. She became one of the most revered actresses of her day for her versatility, which allowed her to play both serious and comedic parts. An advocate for mental health awareness. Duke was a fearless champion for mental health awareness and had accomplished many things in the entertainment industry. She was one of the first famous people to talk publicly about her bipolar illness diagnosis, which occurred after years of personal suffering. The stigma associated with mental illness was reduced because of her efforts, and she encouraged many others to do the same. There were difficulties in Patty Duke's life, but she dealt with them head-on and never gave up. She was an innovative pioneer with a talent for performing that went far beyond the Hollywood industry. Her perseverance, sincerity, and optimism legacy lives on through her work and activism. Birth and early life. Her skills and hardships influenced Patty Duke's early life. She was born Anna Marie Duke in New York City. She was the third child of 4 children brought up in the working-class Queens neighborhood. She had a tough childhood. Her father was the alcoholic handyman and taxi driver John Patrick Duke. Her mother, Frances McMahon, struggled with depression and worked a string of low-paying jobs. Home life was uncertain, characterized by frequent bouts of emotional and financial hardship. Her natural gift for performing. Even at an early age, Anna Marie's extraordinary potential shone through. Her life drastically changed when talent agents John and Ethel Ross found her when she was 7. Her inherent ability for acting was apparent. The Rosses were instrumental in her professional debut, but also had an unsettling influence over her personal life. She was rechristened Patty Duke and started to be shaped into a commercially viable child star. She began her career in advertising and television acting under their guidance, propelling her into the entertainment industry. Remarkable discipline and emotional depth. Patty showed incredible maturity and self-control for someone so young. She was already well known for her stage and television roles, but her breakthrough came when she was cast as Helen Keller in the Broadway version of The Miracle Worker. Both reviewers and spectators were captivated by her dramatic and poignant depiction of the blind and deaf youngster. Duke was the youngest person ever to win the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress when she played the same part again in the film adaptation, and she was just 16 years old. Her life remained tumultuous, but Patty's life was still chaotic behind the scenes. She became more exploitative and domineering in her interactions with the Rosses. She was often manipulated and emotionally pressured as they controlled her schedule and personal choices. With little space to discover who she was or have a typical adolescent experience, the young actress was subject to continual scrutiny and stress. Emotional isolation and exploitation. Patty Duke's public achievements stood in sharp contrast to her hardships. She suffered from emotional isolation and abuse as a child celebrity, despite her enormous skill and widespread acclaim. In addition to molding her professional path, these formative events set the stage for the difficulties she would confront as an adult, most notably in her struggles with mental illness. Strength, resilience, and innate talent. A childhood defined by hardship and remarkable accomplishment, Patty Duke's early life blended genius and struggle. She overcame adversity and natural skill to rise from a dysfunctional family to the pinnacle of Hollywood stardom. She overcame many challenges to become a household name in the United States of America, and her impact will only deepen with the years. Emotionally demanding and psychologically complex. Early in her career, Patty Duke garnered critical praise for the films displaying her remarkable range and emotional depth. She was known for bringing an unfiltered honesty to her performances, even in emotionally and mentally taxing situations. Duke had an incredible talent for capturing the human experience on television, whether playing a fictitious character or a real-life individual. Both audiences and reviewers were deeply moved by her performances, which often delved into self-discovery, hardship, and development themes. As she grew into her acting career, she effortlessly shifted from child star to adult actor, taking on parts that tested her mettle and showcasing her timeless skill. A strong monument to her talent, bravery, and creative legacy is her filmography. The Miracle Worker. The Miracle Worker is an incredibly emotional and dramatic film based on the accurate tale of Annie Sullivan, a remarkable teacher, and the extraordinary youngster Helen Keller, who was deaf and blind. The film depicts the inner and outer struggles of two incredible people who triumph against insurmountable odds through love, faith, and perseverance. It is based on Helen Keller's autobiography, The Story of My Life. A World of Silence and Darkness. The picture opens with Helen, a little girl living in the late 1800s in Tuscumbia, Alabama, surrounded by darkness and stillness. Due to their feelings of sympathy and powerlessness, Helen's family allows her to behave irrationally and uncontrollably when she is alone with her infirmities. Annie Sullivan is a young teacher from the Perkins School for the Blind, whom the Kellers employ in their desperate search to bring order to their daughter's otherwise disordered life. A mix of idealism and iron will. Annie Sullivan, influenced by her complicated history and being partly blind, shows up with a combination of optimism and determination. A swift realization dawns on her: Helen will not benefit from her sympathy. Annie embarks on the challenging journey of reaching Helen, not just in conduct, but also in comprehension, by assertive and contentious means. Teachers and students, both strong-willed and in search of a breakthrough, engage in a power struggle that drives the film's emotional center. The most unforgettable scenes. One of the most memorable sequences in the film is the protracted emotional and physical conflict around the family's dinner table. In this scene, Annie fights against her family's propensity to smother Helen by trying to teach her good table manners. This encounter marks a turning point in their relationship. It is powerful, yet wordless, and full of anger, anguish, and resolve. The importance of discipline as a means of communication and the strength of persistence are shown here for everyone to observe. Helen finally connects. The film's finale is astonishingly moving. Helen eventually connects the items represented by the signs that Annie had been teaching her after weeks of seemingly pointless teachings. Suddenly, a glimmer of light appears when Helen deduces that Annie's repeated finger motions spell water, and that these symbols stand in for the refreshing liquid lapping at her palms. Helen and Annie, who have battled hard to be with her, feel profound affirmation. The film does not sugarcoat the difficult path. Despite its historical roots, The Miracle Worker is primarily a drama about a man's journey towards self-discovery and redemption. It makes us rethink what it means to learn, communicate, and love. The film gracefully and honestly celebrates Helen and Annie's victory without glossing over the tough road they traveled together. An enduring homage to tenacity and the unwavering human need to connect, The Miracle Worker has an emotionally driven storyline, genuine performances, and smart directing. It exemplifies how the resolve of a single person can transform the lives of others, and therefore the whole planet. A powerful and unforgettable portrayal. The Miracle Worker, starring Patty Duke, is a landmark in American cinematic history for its influential and iconic representation. Duke played the role of Helen Keller, a deaf and blind girl, with tragic realism and a performance that showcased her incredible maturity, physical intensity, and emotional sincerity. She was 16 years old. Her performance was a daring showcase of how a young actress could submerge herself in a demanding and complicated part, and it was also a significant creative accomplishment. The role was nonverbal. Much more than rote memorization was needed to play Helen Keller. Actress Helen's nonverbal cues, her facial expressions, gestures, and passionate body language were crucial in conveying her inner world. Duke had to play the role of a little girl who had never learned to talk since she was deaf and blind. She accomplished this with an almost savage physicality. An illustration of this is the famous conflict in the dining room between Helen and her instructor, Annie Sullivan. The protracted fight served as a test of physical and emotional endurance. Instead of being staged, Duke's thrashing, kicking, and lunging mirrored Helen's bewilderment and annoyance. Full immersion was necessary for the risky performance. More than a simple feral child. Duke was excellent as Helen because she expertly conveyed the untamed, uncontrollable behavior and the tenderness and intellect behind it. She insisted that Helen be recognized for more than just her wild childhood. As an alternative, she gave the character nuanced moments of emotional yearning and bewilderment, suggesting that she was struggling to make sense of a society that refused to admit her. Without resorting to emotion, Duke succeeded in evoking admiration and pity from the crowd. Raw, real, and dynamic. Another critical factor in the popularity of her performance was her relationship with co-star Anne Bancroft, who portrayed Annie Sullivan. Their performances together were intense, and the on-screen chemistry between the two women seemed genuine, vibrant, and honest. On-screen, the teacher-student dynamic was convincing and emotionally fierce because of the real-life respect and trust between Bancroft and Duke. A path that seemed genuine at every turn, their moments were full of suspense, rebellion, and at last, breakthrough. Best Supporting Actress. Duke made history when she became the youngest person to ever win a competitive Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her portrayal. Not only was her performance of high quality, but her age also contributed to her justifiable attention. She could express a great deal by moving her body and letting her expressions speak for themselves. One of the most iconic performances of all time was Patty Duke's depiction of Helen Keller in the classic film The Miracle Worker. It was a showcase for her incredible skill and an inspiration to performers of all generations. Her performance in the film exemplifies the life-altering potential of acting and the effect that can be achieved by immersing oneself in a character with authenticity, accuracy, and unwavering dedication. Valley of the Dolls. Jacqueline Suzanne's best-selling book, Valley of the Dolls, was adapted into a dramatic film in the late 1960s. The film follows three women attempting to make it big in the notoriously male-dominated entertainment industry. It beautifully depicts camaraderie, ambition, and the tragic price of pursuing fame in a field often plagued by deceit, addiction, and tragedy. Three central characters. The film centers on three main people, all of whom have unique stories and aspirations, but who are bound together by the commonality of trying to discover themselves in the face of Hollywood's intense demands. A complex portrait of women's lives hidden beneath the entertainment industry's glitter is revealed as their narratives entwine as they battle stardom, love, treachery, and addiction. Profound emotional pain. The way Valley of the Dolls juxtaposes deep emotional suffering with stunning sparkle and beauty is one of its most captivating features. For many of the protagonists, the dolls in the title are the prescription medications that help them deal with stress, fatigue, and inner demons. These drugs serve as a metaphor for the devastating power of fame and as a crutch for those who rely on them. To drive home the point about the price of fame and the precariousness of mental health, the film fearlessly depicts the protagonist's declines. Drama and intimate moments. The characters' frailties and weaknesses are exposed as the plot develops through grand drama and personal moments. Each woman's depiction adds a layer of depth as she struggles with her loss, whether love, innocence, or self-respect. The emotional instability and tension in the film's sexual and platonic relationships highlight the difficulties of loyalty and trust in a cutthroat business world. The changing social dynamics. Aside from its profound effect on popular culture, Valley of the Dolls stands out for evoking the essence of its time. It mirrored the societal shifts in the 1960s, particularly regarding women's autonomy, sexuality, and aspirations. The film's daring narrative and honest examination of still current topics have earned it a cult following, even though several reviewers first panned it for its theatrical style and sensationalism. Flawed yet relatable characters. The performances in the film had a significant role in making it a classic. Actors provided depth and dimension to their parts, creating both sensitive and ambitious characters with flaws yet accessible. Without their humanizing performances, reducing the narrative to scandal or sensationalism would have been easy. To summarize, Valley of the Dolls is a powerful look at the inner struggles and price tags of becoming a famous actress. It blends the glitz with the grim, the happy with the sad, and the ideal with the actual. The film is a moving and warning story about the cost of seeking happiness, even if it may be a little over the top. Its enduring appeal is a testament to the sincere, though sometimes unsettling, examination of desire, addiction, and the search for one's identity in a society that often prioritizes outward appearances over inner qualities. A daring shift in her career. Actress Patty Duke boldly moved away from the stereotypical child star role and into a more nuanced, mature one with her performance in Valley of the Dolls. The 1967 film adaptation of Jacqueline Susann's best-selling book chronicled the trials and tribulations of three Hollywood women as they dealt with the pressures of stardom, ambition, and addiction. Bold, emotionally raw, and tremendously vulnerable, Duke's performance as the talented but troubled singer Neely O'Hara is still one of the film's most talked-about aspects. Girl Next Door. From the innocent girl next door parts that had characterized Duke's previous work, Neely O'Hara was a considerable change. The protagonist was a strong-willed, ambitious, and narcissistic lady who rose to notoriety but ultimately succumbed to her issues, drug addiction, and the demands of celebrity. Duke brought a daring intensity to the part, immersing herself in Neely's emotional extremes and mental breakdown. Her portrayal was shocking and memorable, perfectly capturing the isolation, agitation, and despair of a woman on the brink of collapse. Her ability to convey Neely's inner conflict. Duke captivated the audience with her portrayal of Neely's inner turmoil. Adding sad depth beyond dramatization, Duke portrays the character's descent into addiction and mental disintegration. There is a real, rather than staged, frenzied intensity to her bouts of emotional breakdown. Audiences see Neely's public glamour and success, and the inner anguish and anxiety that come with it via her depiction. The film's overall tone and execution. At first, critics and viewers had mixed feelings about the film's tone and execution. Nonetheless, Duke's performance was a standout feature. Others lauded Duke for being brave enough to show her character's ugly and unfiltered aspects, while others panned the film for being too theatrical. Neely O'Hara, played by Duke, was fearless, imperfect, and ruthlessly authentic at a period when Hollywood female characters were often limited to simplistic or one-dimensional stereotypes. Her struggles with bipolar disorder. Duke's performance was more believable because of her own life experiences. Privately, she was battling with bipolar illness, which manifested itself in many of Neely's on-screen actions. Her real-life experience seemed to shape her performance, enabling her to convey overwhelming emotional turmoil, even if her diagnosis would come years later. With the benefit of hindsight, Duke's performance in The Valley of the Dolls becomes all the more moving since it provides a glimpse into her inner life via a fictitious tale. Defying expectations. To sum up, Patty Duke's performance in Valley of the Dolls was an audacious and career-altering turn for her. She defied expectations and showed her flexibility as a dramatic actor by taking on a contentious part and making it her own. While her performance as Neely O'Hara was divisive at the time, its emotional impact and unabashed realism have subsequently won her praise and continue to resonate as an honest representation of a woman destroyed by fame. Her complex relationship. Patty Duke's real-life experiences were just as complex and interesting as the fictional ones she played. Her early stardom, mental instability, and subsequent bipolar illness diagnosis produced a web of complicated relationships that stood behind her celebrated acting career. Anxieties and deep connection characterized her path through love, marriage, parenting, and self-discovery. Raising a family while dealing with Duke's mental illness was difficult. She was married more than once, and there were suspicions about his paternity. Still, she never wavered in her devotion to her loved ones or her willingness to talk frankly about her struggles. Her relationships were central to her narrative and evidence of her strength, vulnerability, and will to live honestly. Desi Arnaz Jr. Desi Arnaz Jr. is a complex American entertainment personality with a storied family history, a wealth of skill, and an interesting personal story. He was born into fame and fortune as the first child of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, two legendary TV personalities. An episode of I Love Lucy notably included his birth, turning it into a national sensation on television and in real life. As a child, Arnaz Jr. had the unusual task of coming into his own apart from the colossal legacy left by his famous parents. He pursued his path in show business. Desi Arnaz Jr. continued his career in show business despite the early demands of fame. When he was in his teens, he started acting. Later, he joined the popular band Dino, Desi, and Billy and became a famous musician. While busy with film and television roles, he maintained a low-key, private existence away from the camera. Throughout his life, he has faced intense criticism, undergone profound personal growth, and has been on an ongoing quest for authenticity and stability. No matter what happens, Desi Arnaz Jr. will always be a fascinating and admired character in American entertainment history. His skill, perseverance, and legacy are well respected. Two most iconic figures. When Desi Arnaz Jr. was born, it was a unique event. His birth was a cause for a national celebration since he was born to Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, two of the most legendary names in television history. Imaginary little Ricky was born to Lucy Ricardo on January 19, 1953, to the delight of millions of Americans who watched I Love Lucy. Desi Arnaz Jr.'s real-life birth to Lucille Ball on that very day indelibly linked his life to one of the most adored families on television. Being one of the first examples of a pregnancy included in a television plot, his birth marked a watershed moment in cultural history. The child of television royalty. Desi Arnaz Jr. was a superstar baby from the day he came into this world. He gained instant celebrity because he was the offspring of television royalty. Raised in the spotlight, he experienced the comfort of family and childhood challenges. Born into a family famous for their prosperity, laughing, and national devotion, made him a symbol of the American ideal. He was the subject of magazine features, media discussions, and more. But his family life was more complicated behind the scenes. The pressures of fame. Despite Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz's legendary status, their marriage had its share of problems. Arnaz Sr.'s alcoholism, the demands of his profession, and the expectations of celebrity all contributed to a tense relationship between them. Growing up, Desi Jr. saw firsthand how love and strife could coexist in a home. He was profoundly impacted by his parents' 1960 divorce, which ended an era for his family and the millions of people who had grown to love them as America's sweethearts. Remained close to his mother and father. Desi Arnaz Jr. maintained strong relationships with his parents despite having a difficult split. His family name, as did his budding musical abilities, put him in the spotlight. Growing up in a family that valued artistic expression and public performance sparked his early interest in music and acting. He joined Dino, Desi, and Billy, a pop band that catered to a younger demographic, while he was in his early teens, and the group quickly became very successful. Opportunity and hardship. He had both opportunity and suffering due to his early exposure to fame. It was difficult for him to form his own identity since he was always being compared to his parents and felt like he lived in their shadow. Substance addiction was an issue for Desi Jr. when he was younger. a time of inner turmoil and a need to escape societal norms and expectations, which he subsequently discussed publicly. However, Desi Arnaz Jr.'s upbringing was impacted by factors other than his popularity. Characteristics of the time were tenacity, closeness to loved ones, and a will to chart his course. Growing up amid a watershed time in television history, he grappled with a delicate balance between being remembered and true to himself. Not only does he come from a famous family, but his life is also marked by the pressures and privileges of being a celebrity, and he fights to build his reputation apart from his inherited one. A career that showcased his abilities. A lifelong participant in the television business, Desi Arnaz Jr.'s career symbolizes a quest for legacy, skill, and self-discovery. Growing up in the entertainment industry as the son of TV pioneer Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball, and he was always around cameras and sets. But Arnaz Jr. didn't let fame get in the way of his acting career. He worked hard to earn it. While his later parts showed an increasing depth and maturity, his early TV appearances had a natural charisma and screen presence. Arnaz Jr. gained praise for his versatile television acting, which ranged from comedy to somber roles, and his ability to evoke a wide range of emotions. His mark in the music world. Amidst the tumultuous whirlwind of 1960s American pop culture, Desi Arnaz Jr., son of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, emerged as a teenage idol with proper skill and aspirations to make it big. Many people thought Arnaz Jr. would be another actor like his parents. Still, he shocked everyone by establishing himself as a major player in the music industry at a young age, showing a love of rhythm, performance, and popular music that would shape his creative identity. Dino, Desi, and Billy. In the mid-1960s, he joined the pop trio Dino, Desi, and Billy, which included Billy Hinch, the son of Dean Martin, Dino, and Dean Paul Martin, the son of Dean Martin, as drummer. This was the turning point in his musical career. Frank Sinatra's Reprise Records signed the group when they became popular with a younger demographic. Their pristine appearance, infectious songs, and ties to Hollywood's elite propelled them to stardom. The band broke into the radio charts and major TV programs of the period with songs like I'm a Fool and Not the Lovin' Kind, which became small successes. A teen pop group. Despite receiving less critical acclaim than their peers, Dino, Desi, and Billy established themselves as a prominent adolescent pop trio during the British invasion. Arnaz Jr. got a taste of the highs and lows of professional music during their tours with big names like the Beach Boys. When the group was founded, Arnaz Jr. was thrown into the hectic world of traveling, recording sessions, and live television appearances at age 12. He enthusiastically took on these difficulties, and his drumming and stage presence were praised. Love for music remained a steady force. Dino, Desi, and Billy broke up in the early 1970s after experiencing a decline in popularity that began in the late 1960s. But Arnaz Jr.'s enthusiasm for music never wavered. He has been in several bands and worked on many projects with other musicians throughout the years, and he is even reunited with Billy Hinch on occasion. As an entertainer, his musical abilities became integral to his persona and shaped his subsequent roles in cinema and television. He never strayed from his personal and professional life. Arnaz Jr. found solace in music as a personal outlet, a refuge from celebrity demands and the weight of expectation accompanying his family name. His acting career took off in the 70s and 80s, but music was always an essential part of his life, professionally and personally. His stage and studio performances reflected his deep connection to rhythm, expressiveness, and creativity that he had felt throughout his life. However, Desi Arnaz Jr.'s musical career did not achieve the same international success as his parents. It was still an essential and genuine part of his artistic path. He created his niche in the music industry, influenced by heritage, but defined by his voice, rhythm, and beat, thanks to his young passion, consistent devotion, and actual skill. Stepping out of the towering shadow. Actor Desi Arnaz Jr. has repeatedly shown that he can carve out a niche for himself apart from the illustrious family name. Expectations and public curiosity trailed him from an early age, since he was born into the entertainment industry to television pioneers Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Nevertheless, Arnaz Jr. established a body of work showcasing his versatility, ability, and personal development as an actor via serious parts in cinema and television. His charm and screen presence. Guest starring on hit TV shows in the 60s and 70s was the turning point in his acting career. Viewers immediately noticed his charisma and charismatic on-screen presence. Several critically acclaimed films, including the 1970s series The Streets of San Francisco, highlighted his potential as an up-and-coming actor. Both his emotional and comedic parts benefited from Arnaz Jr.'s subtle charm and likability. Marco. His portrayal of the famous explorer Marco Polo in the 1973 picture Marco was one of his most memorable early performances. Despite the film's lack of critical praise, Arnaz Jr.'s performance showcased his readiness to tackle challenging and varied parts. His versatility as an actor was displayed in his roles in Billy Two Hats, 1974, and Red Sky at Morning, 1971, showcasing his mastery of nuanced characters and locations. He managed to put some space between himself and the novelty of being the kid of a star by the seriousness of purpose he showed in these films. Enjoyed steady success. Arnaz Jr. had consistent success on television in addition to his film career. The science fiction series Automan, 1983 to 1984, on ABC, was one of his most famous performances. He portrayed a computer programmer who builds a holographic police partner. Despite its brief existence, the show enabled Arnaz Jr. to dabble with genre TV and garner a cult following. His flexibility as an actor also landed him guest spots on series like Murder, She Wrote, Fantasy Island, and The Love Boat, as well as performances in television movies. Sincerity and depth to his role. Often playing characters torn between private conflict and social pressure, Arnaz Jr. brought authenticity and complexity to his performances throughout his acting career. Some parts of his actual life were reflected in this topic. He never aspired to the enormous stardom of his parents, but he did embrace a quieter, more consistent presence in Hollywood, one based on hard work and commitment rather than flash and glamour. Stepped away from the spotlight. In the 1990s, Arnaz Jr. started to spend less time in the limelight and more time on his private life, particularly his work with the Lucille Ball Desi Arnaz Center in Jamestown, New York, which he founded to honor his parents. His previous roles are still significant in the annals of cinema and television, even if he cut down on his acting output. Desi Arnaz Jr.'s acting career has been an unassuming triumph, a path of discovery, development, and self-definition. The artist was born into stardom, yet he walked his road with integrity and dedication to his profession. Marco Polo. One of the most significant and challenging parts that Desi Arnaz Jr. had in his early acting career was in the 1973 historical adventure picture Marco. Cast as the eponymous Venetian adventurer from the 13th century, Arnaz Jr. transformed into a figure very different from his real-life identity and Hollywood background. This picture was a big step for him as an actor, signaling that he was prepared to step out of the shadow of his famous parents, Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball, and play major lead parts. Polo's legendary journey. Highlighting the explorer's experiences with different cultures, political intrigue, and personal development, Marco chronicles the account of Polo's fabled trip from Venice to the court of Kublai Khan in China. Arnaz Jr. had the problematic role of a young, resolute explorer navigating a world far from his own as the protagonist. Drama, romance, and heroic moments might be woven into the role's intricate physical and emotional fabric. This character was a massive change for Arnaz Jr., who had previously specialized in musical performances and lighter adolescent material. Stretching his acting abilities. Acting out the role of Marco Polo was a challenge for Arnaz Jr. He had to capture Polo's grown-up leadership qualities, as well as his youthful wonder and naivete as he ventured into uncharted territories. Arnaz Jr. embodied the part with genuine honesty and passion. Like Marco, he wanted to develop his artistic abilities and conveyed his enthusiasm and drive this way. Many reviews praised Arnaz Jr.'s performance, seeing it as an earnest attempt by a young actor anxious to show his versatility, even if the film's choppy pace and historical liberties were points of criticism. A film that featured elaborate sets and period costumes. The filming of Marco was a massive production that took place in several worldwide locations to portray the majesty of Polo's travels. The film's scenes, costumes, and sets were all designed to capture the grandeur of one of the most well-known travels in history. Arnaz Jr. was able to work with seasoned performers and fully immerse himself in a culturally rich story on this international film, which added depth and professionalism to his career. A milestone in Arnaz Jr.'s career. Even though Marco was not a huge financial success, it was a watershed moment in Arnaz Jr.'s career. It demonstrated that he was not afraid to take chances and take on parts that needed more than just charisma or celebrity status. The video showcased his dedication to acting and his aspiration to forge his creative path. Marco represents Desi Arnaz Jr.'s evolution from teen idol to serious actor looking back. Even though the picture didn't do very well at the box office, his performance as Marco Polo was moving and emotional, and it showed a young man's determination to make his mark in a field that had seen him grow up. Most talked about young romances. In the early 1970s, Desi Arnaz Jr. and Patty Duke's courtship was a hot topic in Hollywood. Their partnership reflected the tension between the natural ardor of youth and the crushing demands of stardom, public scrutiny, and individual struggles. Their time together was short, but made an indelible impression on them. It was a watershed moment in American pop culture, but it's an integral part of the bigger picture of celebrity relationships overall. High-profile family connection. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz were television legends, and their son, Desi Arnaz Jr., enjoyed a similarly famous upbringing. The far more troubled personal history of Patty Duke, who won an Oscar and was a television star, meant that she too had experienced celebrity at an early age. Duke was in her early 20s, and Arnaz Jr. was an adolescent when they started dating in the early 1970s. They were fascinating and controversial due to their age gap, prominent family ties, and public personalities. Media attention and gossip columns. Gossip columns and entertainment websites followed their every move as the relationship garnered much media attention. It was said that Lucille Ball was worried about the relationship because of the age difference and the significant attention they were receiving. Duke and Arnaz Jr. were regularly seen together at public gatherings and maintained their tight relationship despite other influences. Their relationship was formed by true love, the challenges of dealing with teenage popularity, and personal problems. They spoke candidly about their relationship. Patty Duke's subsequent autobiographies were frank accounts of the relationship, in which she described it as very intense and very emotional, molded by the volatility of her own life, particularly her battle with bipolar illness. It took a long time for this illness to be recognized. The public's awareness of mental health in Hollywood was enhanced by her forthrightness on that period of her life, which illuminated the emotional struggles that impacted her relationships. Looking back, the romance between Desi Arnaz Jr. and Patty Duke is a powerful illustration of the human challenges that may arise from early popularity. Duke was going through a difficult emotional time, and Arnaz Jr., growing up in the spotlight, benefited greatly from their short but significant affair. Beyond the surface level of fame, their narrative delves into the universal need for companionship, comprehension, and embrace in the face of adversity. Michael Tell. Michael Tell's short but memorable appearance in the early 1970s entertainment industry is what made him famous. He rose to fame as a writer and publisher mainly due to his connections in the film industry. But more people have been interested in his private life than his career. Tell, formerly involved in publishing, was a minor player in the world of famous people. However, he unexpectedly became famous after a brief but highly publicized marriage, which put his name in the media. In the following years, Michael Tell stayed out of the limelight, giving very little information about himself and making very few public appearances. Those interested in the complicated personal histories of Hollywood's lesser-known figures find his biography intriguing, despite his limited time in the public light. A brief marriage marked by turmoil. Michael Tell and Patty Duke's marriage was one of Hollywood's most contentious and short-lived relationships. Their brief romance has always captivated audiences and scholars with its peculiarities, quick development, and emotional complexity. Their short marriage of 13 days in 1970 mirrored Duke's inner turmoil and the tumultuous demands of living under the perpetual microscope of the public eye. Erratic behavior and emotional instability. Michael Tell's paths intersected with Patty Duke, who was already famous. She overcame both professional success and profound emotional hardship as an Academy Award-winning actress and a former child star of The Patty Duke Show. Her personal life was chaotic and unpredictable due to Duke's undiagnosed bipolar disease, which caused her erratic conduct and mental instability, which few people at the time knew about. He was not part of the acting world. While Duke was most vulnerable, the non-actor Michael Tell got engaged with her. Tell is a writer and publisher. They were engaged soon after meeting, and their decision to tie the knot on June 26, 1970, shocked onlookers, friends, and family alike. Afterwards, it was revealed that Duke was going through a tough emotional patch when she agreed to marry Tell, which was relatively rare. The marriage had been characterized as either a spontaneous effort for stability or a gesture motivated by outside forces. Different authors provide conflicting accounts. The marriage unraveled immediately. Regardless of the reasons, the marriage quickly fell apart. Duke and Tell divorced in less than 2 weeks, and the marriage was subsequently invalidated. The briefness of their marriage garnered extensive media coverage, further amplifying the deluge of news, including Duke's private life. Although Michael Tell had no significant public profile, this incident briefly catapulted him into the tabloid limelight before he faded from view. She spoke openly about her erratic choices. Patty Duke was quite forthright in her later years about her impulsive decisions when she was younger. Erratic emotions and hasty choices marked her 20s. Her subsequent diagnosis of bipolar illness provided insight into her struggles. Instead of seeing her marriage to Tell as a love affair gone bad, her honest views placed it in the perspective of a deeper, more personal battle for emotional stability and understanding. A life away from the limelight. After his marriage ended in divorce, Michael Tell decided to live a life away from the spotlight. His narrative becomes mysterious due to the lack of information surrounding his life after the breakup and his relative silence over his short relationship with Duke. Despite his role as a minor character in Patty Duke's story, his name is still associated with that event. Symbolic of a young woman's emotional struggles in trying to make sense of her life in the face of celebrity, pressure, and inner anguish, the marriage of Michael Tell and Patty Duke is a moving picture of a difficult period. The marriage was short, confusing, and sad. John Astin. John Astin's acting career has been extensive, spanning theater, cinema, and television. For decades, Astin has enchanted audiences with his unique performances, which include his voice, facial expressions, and knack for playing quirky characters. His comedic and dramatic roles in the 1960s propelled him to stardom, and his unusual combination of formal theater training and inherent charm helped him become a household figure. Along with his acting career, Astin has been an instructor and director, passing on his love of the theater to subsequent generations. His wisdom, humor, and reverence for storytelling have ensured his place in entertainment history. Birth and early life. Famous for his unique voice, charismatic stage presence, and impressive acting range, John Astin is a revered personality in the entertainment industry. His creative, intellectual, and passionate career in television, cinema, and theater had its roots in his formative years before he became famous for his many appearances in these medias. He was exposed to a stimulating environment. Baltimore, Maryland, is the place of John Allen Astin's birth. He was raised in an intellectually rich city with rich literature and cultural traditions. Thus, he was immersed in culture early on. His famous scientist father, Dr. Allen Varley Astin, went on to head the National Institute of Standards and Technology, now called the National Bureau of Standards. His mother, Margaret Lenny Mackenzie, was a strong advocate for the family's financial stability and for encouraging a spirit of academic rigor and inquiry. John deeply admired the arts and sciences due to his upbringing in a family that valued education and scientific progress. His intellectual background. A reflection of Astin's intellectual background was evident in his early schooling. He was an academic prodigy who developed an interest in the performing arts while attending Baltimore public schools. Although John came from a scientific family, he always had a passion for stories, music, and books, and that passion only grew as he got older. Astin attended Pennsylvania's Washington and Jefferson College after finishing high school. He followed in his family's academic footsteps by majoring in mathematics at the university level. Nevertheless, he was eventually led astray by his love of the arts. After transferring there, Astin earned a bachelor's degree in theater from Johns Hopkins University. He started honing the acting chops that would serve as the bedrock of his career during his time at Johns Hopkins, when he was heavily involved in student performances. His love for classical literature and poetry. Along with his formal education, Astin cultivated an appreciation for the works of great poets and writers, which informed his theatrical performances and educational pursuits. In addition, he learned the ins and outs of directing and producing, which would be helpful throughout his varied career in the entertainment industry. Astin relocated to New York City upon graduating from Johns Hopkins to pursue an acting profession. At the beginning of his career, he, like many other young artists, had to rely on odd jobs to pay the bills while he auditioned for roles and made connections in the theater world. He persisted, eventually getting parts in movies, TV shows, and theatrical performances. Intellectual rigor and artistic exploration. An equal proportion of academic rigor and creative experimentation characterized John Astin's formative years. Coming from an academically and athletically inclined family helped him forge his distinctive route in the performing arts industry. His early exposure to the theater, stable academic background, and solid Baltimore upbringing set the stage for a career that would last for decades and have an indelible impact on American society. An enduring and distinctive series. The Addams Family is one of the most iconic and long-running American television programs ever. The program originally ran from 1964 to 1966 and was a wonderful, funny, and touching take on Charles Addams' spooky New Yorker drawings. The series' smash hit was John Astin's performance as the cheerful, mustachioed father of the charmingly grotesque Addams Family, Gomez. One of the most legendary characters in television history, Astin's portrayal of the character was distinguished for years by his theatrical flair, limitless energy, and exquisite comic timing. A dark, whimsical counterpoint. Among the many sitcoms of the 1960s, The Addams Family stood out. The affluent and quirky Addamses provided a darkly whimsical contrast to the idyllic suburban life shown in other family comedies of the era. There was a constant undertone of familial love and devotion throughout the show, even as it welcomed the bizarre and terrifying. The program was intelligent and approachable because of the humorous tension juxtaposing the family's clean morals and creepy surroundings. The Offbeat Universe. Central to this eccentric cosmos was John Astin's Gomez Addams. Wearing a striped suit and often brandishing a fencing sword or puffing on a cigar, Gomez exuded an irrepressible mix of energy, abandon, and awe, much like a kid. He took great pleasure in the macabre and the ridiculous, often responding joyfully to tragedies or indications of bad luck, things that might trouble a more traditional household. Notwithstanding these eccentricities, Gomez was shown as a loyal spouse and parent, showing unwavering love to Morticia, Wednesday, and Pugsley. a likable and layered character. Aston's performance greatly enhanced Gomez's endearing complexity and likability. He brought a tremendous energy and charisma to the role, often jumping on furniture, making wildly expressive gestures, and speaking with an infectious enthusiasm. There was a strong connection between him and Carolyn Jones, who portrayed Morticia. Unlike other comedy couples of the time, they presented their love with genuine passion and devotion. Their intense dynamic, which included love, respect, and playful intimacy, provided a solid foundation for the show's wilder moments. Balance the absurd with sincerity. Being able to balance the ridiculous and the genuine made Aston unique. Although Gomez often responded to strange events with overwhelming happiness, Aston made sure the character never lost touch with reality emotionally. Because of his unfaltering dedication to Gomez's odd worldview, even the most fantastical situations seemed plausible within the context of the Addams family. The energy and excitement of Gomez were infectious, and Aston's charm brought it all to life, whether he was playing swordplay in the living room, investing in an odd business enterprise, or lavishing Morticia with poetry and kisses. Its cultural impact. The cultural influence of the Addams family continued long after the show's two-season run ended. John Aston's portrayal of Gomez became an icon in popular culture, and the program gained a dedicated fan following thanks to repeats. Future animated or live-action renditions of the character often compared him to his iconic portrayal because of how intimately the character was linked to Aston. His performance garnered much acclaim for staying true to Charles Addams' original vision while bringing a lot of heart and nuance to the role. Made-for-TV movie. Over the years, Aston reprised his role as Gomez several times. He voiced the character in many animated adaptations and returned to the role in 1977's made-for-TV film Halloween with the New Addams Family. His lasting impact on the part is a testament to how well he portrayed Gomez Addams and his environment. It carries a subtle message. The Addams Family conveyed subtle lessons of acceptance and originality in addition to its entertaining value. Despite their apparent differences from their neighbors, the Addamses never shied away from embracing their individuality. They were proud and joyful in their skin. Thus, John Aston's Gomez became both a comical character and a representation of the liberation to love unconditionally and live one's life as one pleases. Spoke fondly of his time as Gomez. John Aston has talked highly of his role as Gomez, commenting on the show's impact. He saw something special in the show, a family that loved and supported one another no matter what, even when things were out of the ordinary. In a career that included playing in Shakespearean plays, voice acting, and directing, his time on the program was more than just a role. It was a watershed event. Character acting and comedic brilliance. Finally, his portrayal of Gomez in the Addams Family is a comic genius and a masterpiece in character acting. His performance as Gomez Addams brought humor, quirkiness, and emotion to the program, which was afraid to embrace the unusual. Aston helped establish a culture touchstone that resounds with viewers of all generations. Despite his impressive acting career, his portrayal of the exuberant Gomez may be the most cherished part of his television legacy. Sean Astin. American actor Sean Astin is known for his charisma and sincere performances throughout his decades-long career. Astin gained fame as a trustworthy and emotionally engaging actor via his portrayal of the brave and faithful Samwise Gamgee in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Before that, he was a breakthrough star in the motivational sports drama Rudy, playing the character of the tenacious young man Rudy Ruettiger. His impressive versatility has been displayed throughout his career as he has gone from cinema and television to voice acting. Integrity, intellect, and advocacy. Aside from his acting work, Astin is well known for his honesty, intelligence, and commitment to social causes. Like his on-screen personas, his public speeches on mental health, civic duty, and the value of family mirror his real personality. Despite his impressive career accomplishments, Astin's personal story, particularly regarding inquiries about his family history, is just as enjoyable. He has handled life's challenges with dignity and poise despite being born into fame. His path to stardom is multifaceted, including struggles with self-discovery, dogged persistence, and the search for fundamental truths. A remarkable Hollywood career. Sean Astin experienced a spectacular Hollywood career marked by length, flexibility, and a genuine devotion to his profession. In his 4 decades of working as an actor, he has amassed a varied resume that includes parts in movies, TV shows, and voice acting, and he has become well known for being a dependable and enthusiastic performer. Astin's breakthrough role, solidifying his position in cinematic history, started when he was a toddler. The Goonies, 1985, an action movie he starred in when he was only 13 years old, became a classic. With his performance as the sincere and resolute Mikey Walsh, Astin has an innate ability to portray relatable, realistic people. His career was launched into high gear with the film's success, which brought him into the limelight and paved the way for several critical and financial triumphs. Film and television. Astin maintained a steady stream of film and TV roles throughout the 80s and 90s. Showing his versatility, he starred in everything from adolescent comedies to tragedies. In the 1993 sports drama Rudy, he played the role of Daniel Rudy Rudiger, a young man who defies all odds to play college football at Notre Dame. His portrayal was one of his most famous. Astin was praised for his moving portrayal of the real-life character who embodied tenacity and will. Fans still love the part. Many consider it the most incredible motivational sports video ever. Samwise Gamgee. In the early 2000s, Astin shot to stardom after starring as Samwise Gamgee in Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy. Critics praised his performance as the brave and faithful Hobbit, and fans throughout the globe loved him for it. One of the most popular characters in the epic narrative, Sam was brought to life by Astin's genuine acting, which exuded emotional depth and a sense of modest courage. His performance in the trilogy demonstrated his versatility as an actor and his emotional ability to anchor a main ensemble cast. His work reflects his adaptability and enduring appeal. In addition to his work in live-action films, Sean Astin has made a big splash in television and voice acting. He has played both tragic and comic characters in his many television appearances. In addition to lending his voice to several animated series and video games, he portrayed Raphael in the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle remake. His voice work showcases his versatility and ability to connect with audiences of all ages. Astin has been busy in the media industry in recent years, making notable cameos in hit shows like Stranger Things and taking part in indie cinema projects. In addition to his obvious acting chops, he has a stellar reputation for his work in the background as a director and producer. Sean Astin has consistently shown his dedication, skill, and profound regard as an actor during his tenure in Hollywood. He is still beloved in cinema and television because of his reputation for tenacity, versatility, and emotionally charged performances. Patty Duke speechless after son's paternity test. Acting has been Justin's lifelong passion. You may recall that he was in The Goonies. Sean grew up in the limelight, as one would expect from a son of actress Patty Duke. Several things were working for Sean. He was fortunate to have a mother who loved him and would do everything for him, and a prosperous profession throughout his life. Without his father, Sean's life would be incomplete. He was unaware of his real father until he was in his mid-20s, when 3 men who may have been his father performed a DNA test and discovered his true identity. Patty Duke's first child. Since he was a little boy, Sean has been in the spotlight because he is Patty Duke's first child. Since Patty was uncertain about the biological father at the time, she had been in other relationships, he was also the subject of numerous rumors. Rumors persisted even after Sean reached an understanding age. Confirmation of his biological father didn't come until he was much older. His mother bestowed her surname on Sean at his birth on February 25, 1971. Because she had no idea who Sean's father was, not because of her fame or her Oscar, is why she did this. Based on chronology, Patty assumed Desi Arnaz Jr. was Sean's father when she became pregnant amid a romance. Success at an early age. Since she was a teenager, the sudden rise to fame caused Patty's parents great concern. Desi Arnaz Jr. is the son of Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball. Her parents were unhappy to hear her seeing him because they didn't want her to associate with the wrong crowd. Patty was still dealing with the aftermath of her previous marriage to Harry Falk, a man 13 years her senior, when she met Desi Jr. At 23, she was engaged. Desi Jr. began dating Patty at 17, even though her parents doubted his ability to care for their daughter. She found out she was pregnant. Not long after Patty began dating Desi Jr., she learned she was expecting Sean. The romance between them never even got off the ground. Patty starts seeing another famous person after the relationship ends. The teenage actress couldn't handle all the attention from the relationship. Patty preferred an undisclosed relationship so that she could avoid the limelight. Help was at hand from Michael Tell. Michael, a music promoter and newspaper publisher, was subletting Patty's flat and had a unique and unusual plan to help her: a wedding. They were practically strangers. Michael recommended that Patty and he behave like a couple, even though they were barely friends when he made the suggestion. He assured Patty that the press would leave her alone to date anybody she liked because their relationship would divert their attention. Michael urged the young actress Patty to marry him after telling her that being in a relationship wouldn't be enough to keep the press at arm's length. To give the impression that the marriage was legitimate, they conducted a ceremony. In 1970, Patty and Michael were married after Patty gave her consent. They chose to obtain an annulment after the brief 13-day marriage. After the annulment was finalized, Patty ceased communicating with Michael. It was as if their marriage had never been. Patty and John. When Patty's last engagement with an A-lister failed, she vowed never to date another famous person. That is, until she met John Astin of the Addams Family fame. Problems arose when Patty learned she was pregnant, since John was still married to Suzanne Hahn, his first wife, when they met. Sean and Patty were married 2 years after Patty became certain he was Sean's father. When Sean was 18 months old at the wedding, he did something that made everyone think John was his dad. Although it was never determined that John was the biological father, he was pleased to raise Sean as his fourth son, and Sean looked up at John at the wedding ceremony and called him Daddy. John had 3 kids from his previous marriage. John formally adopted Sean and bestowed his surname on him. At long last, Patty had a husband and a family. At last, she could let her guard down and enjoy life without the stress and drama brought on by the media. Divorce and revelation. Things began to go wrong for Patty and John after they had been blissfully married for 13 years. After Patty and Sean's 1985 divorce, she had to choose a place to live for the two of them. Patty decided to tell her son the truth, since their lives were about to transform dramatically. Patty believed Sean was mature enough to deal with the news of his parents' divorce because he was already a teenager. She admitted to Sean that she didn't know his biological father, but she brought up Desi Arnaz Jr. "I thought Desi Jr. was my dad," Sean thought. Sean was eager to see Desi Arnaz Jr. after hearing from Patty that he could be his biological father. Sean informed Desi Jr. about Patty's statement over the phone. He asked Desi Jr. to meet him, and they immediately hit it off. In an interview, Sean said that he and Desi Jr. were very close, with Desi Jr. being like a second father figure after John Astin, who had taken him in and reared him. For a moment, Sean believed he had discovered life's elusive key. But that's not all there is to it. A relative reaches out. At the age of 36, most individuals have met or been acquainted with their relatives. Sean had the unusual occurrence of a long-lost relative contacting him in his mid-30s. Someone approached Sean, asserting a familial relationship. Sean seemed perplexed. Sean was informed by the guy on the phone that they were linked and that he felt Michael Tell, Patty's husband of 13 days, was Sean's father. Sean had doubts, but the guy was unwavering, so Sean chose to investigate it. More questions than answers. Due to his mother's lack of evidence, Sean was unaware of his biological father. This situation became much worse when the news broke and the tabloids used it. Concerns over Sean's paternity were well known. Sean made up his mind to investigate the mystery after meeting the guy who said Michael Tell was indeed his father. Michael Tell may have been his biological father if neither John nor Desi Jr. were his real parents. Second-guessing himself. Despite not knowing his real father as a child, Sean could have an everyday existence. He was enjoying a prosperous career. Christine Harrell was his bride in 1992, and he was happy for her. John Astin and Desi Arnaz Jr. were like father figures to Sean. For that, he was eternally grateful. But he still wasn't sure whether it was worth finding out the truth or letting things be. The rumors about Sean's paternity had subsided, and he was hesitant to reopen the box of worms, fearing that he would once again be subjected to media harassment and featured prominently in tabloid magazines. Sean deliberated for some time before settling on a course of action. Sean takes the test. Sean chose to proceed with the paternity test after some deliberation. The good news is that Michael Tell, Desi Arnaz Jr., and John Astin were all game to take part and determine who Sean's legal father was. Sean doubted all three men would be available to complete the exam 25 years after his birth, but he was incorrect. Without exception, all three guys were eager to learn the truth. Sean was eagerly anticipating the revelation of the truth. He was sick and weary of everyone guessing and not knowing his real father. The time has come. Michael Tell is the father. The wait for results seemed to stretch forever, but at last Sean received word. The DNA tests had returned. Michael Tell was found to be Sean's biological father, which shocked everyone, particularly Patty. After Patty and Michael's marriage, which was a PR farce, they cut off all communication. However, DNA is reliable. It was Sean's dad, Michael. The striking likeness between the two guys is captured in images. Unfortunately, Sean and Michael had to wait 25 years to find out the truth. At last, Sean felt relief and eagerly anticipated seeing his biological father. Patty reacts. For over 26 years, Patty had been plagued by the mystery of Sean's biological father. The actress openly battled bipolar illness, and the uncertainty of her diagnosis further added to her struggles. In the hopes that discovering Sean's paternity would ease her burden, Patty became an activist for mental health awareness and research. However, her thoughts on the DNA findings remain unclear. What follows is an explanation. Patty was not convinced. Despite the mounting scientific evidence to the contrary, she insisted on her theory about Sean's biological father. Even though she didn't believe the test findings, she promised to stand by her son's truth if he only acknowledged hers. Michael Tell was identified as Sean's real father, and Patty confessed to Sean that she knew what she knew to be true. It is well known that DNA does not lie. However, Patty was not quite prepared to accept the outcomes. She took heart in the fact that their kid was overjoyed, however. Many thought Patty was in denial. Maybe she had hoped that John or Desi Jr., with whom she had had a special relationship, was Sean's father. Three dads. Since the annulment, Sean and Michael have had no communication, and Patty has had her hopes set on a different guy to be her child's father. Regarding his biological father, Sean had doubts for most of his life. Two guys, however, had come up and adopted him as their own. He was always upbeat and friendly and was quite close to all of them. John Astin, who was Sean's father and gave him his surname, had an unbreakable relationship with him during his 13 years of raising him. Although Desi Jr. was not Sean's actual father, he was nonetheless regarded as a godfather and insisted that their powerful love bond would remain unbreakable. Michael Tell was another someone Sean got to know well. He was gushing about what a wonderful man he was. A blessing. Lack of paternal involvement in a child's life is common and may have long-term consequences. However, Sean was never concerned about that. Despite just having one biological father, he was fortunate to have three foster dads. A village is all it takes to raise a kid, as the adage says. The guys who helped raise Sean, supported him, and ensured he never felt abandoned were much appreciated by Patty. Michael Tell, Desi Arnaz Jr., and John Astin were all commended by her for loving and accepting her kid. Even as he was welcomed by those who had a hand in shaping his life, Sean was overjoyed to learn the truth about his birth father.
If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon